Hey everybody, and welcome back to Genesis. Today we were reading through chapters 12 through 14, and we see this picture of Abram, who eventually becomes Abraham, and we see how he makes some interesting choices with him and his wife as they go to Egypt. We see his relationship between his nephew Lot, how he goes and helps to save him. But most importantly, what I really want to focus on is here at the beginning of chapter 12, where we see the relationship between Abram and God. You see here in this passage, right at the beginning, we see a promise. We see God's promise and a journey to the promised land. Here in this passage, I'm going to read it real fast for us. Chapter 12, it says, "Now the Lord said to Abram, 'Go forth from your country, and from your relatives, and from your father's house, to the land which I will show you, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great. And so you shall be a blessing, and I will bless those who bless you, and those who curse you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed.' So Abraham went forth as the Lord had spoken to him." Here we see God promises Abram, and he promises him an unconditional promise, a promise that he will never break no matter the decisions and the choices that Abram makes. He promises a promise of protection, one of blessing, one of land, one of nation, but most importantly, he promises that of a seed. He promises to bless him, and then in verse 3 of chapter 12, he says he promises to bless all of the world, all of the people of the world through him. You see here in this passage, he's talking about the seed, that line in his family line, what will come, that of a Messiah, that of Jesus. He is promising that he has a plan to send a Savior that won't just be a blessing for him, that won't just be a blessing for Israel, but will be a blessing for all people. Here at the beginning of the Bible, here in Genesis, we find that God has a plan to send a Savior, and he promises to make a way. And you see this promise for Abram, but we also see that it's a promise for the world, a promise for you and me. How reassuring it is to know that first off, that we have a God who keeps his promises, a God who is always there. But then on top of that, how reassuring it is to know that God has a plan. God had a plan in Genesis. He had a plan from the beginning. He has a plan all the way to the end, all the way to Revelation. He has a plan for Abram. He had a plan for him being Abraham, and he has a plan for you and for me. And how reassuring that our God has a plan and he keeps his promises. But as I rejoice in that, I also reflect on Abram and how he responded to hearing the promise of God, to hearing what God was giving him and where he was leading him. You see, Abram didn't know all the answers. He didn't understand what all of this meant. Yet it says he went forth and he trusted God. As we hear this promise today and we recognize that we are grafted into the family of God through Jesus Christ, we recognize the promise, and we even have more understanding than Abram had. But I think we need to respond in a similar way as Abram does. First, by trusting God. And even when you don't understand the world, even when you don't understand what's going on like Abram did, do we trust God? Do we go forth? Do we listen to God like Abram did? He was there seeking the Lord's voice and ready to follow at his word. Do we listen to God? Do we trust God? And then do we have obedience like Abram had, to go immediately, to step forth and to go out on this journey in which God has called him? No, he didn't understand everything. You may not understand everything, but what we know is we serve a God who has a plan from a beginning and to the end. So the question today is, will you trust him? Will you obey him? Will you trust and obey?